Hello, gorgeous humans. I hit live so automatically that I was like, oh, we're live. Hi. Good morning. Welcome to my favorite day, Friday Q&A. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? Robert is home today, and so he is in the other room running his work meetings. So I feel sufficiently awkward being loud. But it is all good. How are you guys feeling today? How is your Friday? So, there's some big stuff happening, is there not? Do you guys feel I don't have a specific for you today. What I have for you is when we go through these big shifts, your body is going to feel what's coming before your mind is going to understand it. So today, I'm just feeling such a good energy, just feeling that vibe of like, there's a good momentum happening. There's a good energy coming, or it's here, but your body can always sense it before your mind understands it, which is such a really beautiful mechanism in the way that we're built and something that we don't pay enough attention to. Amen. So yesterday I had the best day, like the best day. I had 3 of my private clients all message me with these huge wins. It was just, oh, you know that feeling where you're like, things are happening, like, let's go. I'm so just hype. Okay. So today we're doing Q&A. I'm so excited. You guys know I love Q&A, and we have 2 really juicy questions that we're going to dive into. If along the way you have something that pops up for you, do feel free to drop it in the chat if you need a clarifying question. So if we read the question, we do the answer, and then there's something else that it sparks in you that you're like, I need this. I need to understand this part. Feel free. This is a very conversational day, which is why I love it so much. And, we'll have some really good stuff that comes out of it. All right. So before we dive in, a reminder that next week there will be no morning show. Next week, I'm going out of town. I'm going to take the whole week off. So no morning show next week. Take this time, binge the old episodes. At some point in my life, I am going to put little clips of the old episodes all over the YouTubes to get the really juicy nuggets out there. But in the meantime, binge out the old episodes and or follow along on my Instagram stories so you can watch my out-of-townness. All right, let's dive in. Are we ready? So the first question was left to me in a voice note, but I've got the synopsis of it. It essentially was, why is it that I feel I can give unconditional love for everyone around me, but I can't give it to myself? Why is it that I feel like I can give unconditional love to all people around me, but I feel like I can't do it for myself? What a beautiful question. Like what a really, that's a soul question, is it not? So good. Okay. So unconditional love is who we are, right? It is the foundation of who we are. But like we've talked about so many times before, we come into an ego with a human body. And the ego is the experience of the opposite of who we are. The ego is the polarity to the soul, the polarity to who we actually are. Now, I want you to think about this in terms of like the game of life. We come to experience that which we are not. That is like, don't quote me, but I am almost 99% sure that is a quote in the Bible. We come to experience that which we are not. So we come to experience our opposite. So when we are light, unconditional love at our core, and we come into the earth world, I love when I talk like this because it makes me sound like an alien. Like we come to the earth world, we come to the earth to experience this game of polarity, to experience the game of the opposite. And the way that you win the game is to remember who you are in the face of your opposite. Okay. So if we know that, it's like we've got a cheat code to the instruction manual of how to do this game. Doesn't always make it that much easier though, does it? Because we have these experiences of our not enoughness, our insecurities, our feelings about like, I don't like how I look, I don't like my body, I'm not smart enough, I'm all of that stuff is really loud, right? And a lot of times we have the ability to see the light in other people, even when we're feeling as though we're like a tier below them. You see what I'm saying? So I want to say this. If you are seeing other people and you can see their potential, you see their good. I don't think this is an abnormal thing. I think we do this, especially when we're on this light path. Like we can see the good in other people. We can see their highest potential. And then when it comes to ourselves, we're really, really hard on ourselves, right? So in that light though, what I want you to realize is that you're basically already there. Because if you're not living in a world where you are chastising other people, you know what I mean? Where you're judging people, you're putting them down, you're blaming them, all of that. If that you're not living in that world, you've essentially graduated from that level because there are people who do that, right? There are people who do the complete opposite, where everyone they see, they have a problem with them. So you're in this space right now where you can see the light in everybody else. Celebrate that because that's you on your way to graduating to the next level. So in experiencing our opposite, we've got to get super clear on what it is that I'm requiring of myself in order to be loved. We're naturally harder on ourselves, right? We naturally are. But that's not without purpose. We come to experience the opposite of that which we are. So I want you to just break this down and think about this. We had this conversation. Where do we have this conversation? The Reclaim Yourself program. We had this conversation. An example, if I am experiencing like wild insecurity, like wild not enoughness, like who would love me? I look like this. I do this. I act like that, whatever, The truth of who you actually are is wildly confident. Do you see what I'm saying? You come and experience to the direct degree the opposite of what you actually are. Okay. So here's what we do. Because that ego energy is so strong, and it can be, we all know this energy, right? It can be overwhelming with feeling as though that's true. What you've got to do is one, realize it's the opposite of who you actually are, right? That's foundation. And then back up and go to the part of you that thinks all of these things, totally accept it. Entirely accept this part of you that believes it. So here's the like script that you use. I hear you. I hear you. You're scared that you're not good enough. But I'll tell you this right now. The truth is, we are more than good enough. And I understand that you're scared. And that's okay. I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it. Don't worry about it. Now, this sounds silly, but what this does is it immediately identifies you. You identify with the truth. So you're seeing the ego polarity for what it is. And instead of being in the ego that thinks you're not good enough and thinks you need to fix it and thinks all of these things, instead of identifying there, you're identifying with truth and telling the ego part of you, I hear you, and it's okay. I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Immediately, you're shifting your center of consciousness out of the ego and into soul. This matters so much because the ego, I heard this called the hungry ghost the other day. The ego is never satisfied. And we see this. We see this all the time. I want you to look at, and no shame on like plastic surgery and all of those things, but how many times have we seen someone try to fix themselves into loving themselves? The ego is never satisfied. No matter what you do, it will always come up with something else that's not good enough, that needs to be fixed. That's the mechanism that it is. So when you can say, I hear you, ego, you're just doing your thing. Nothing's ever enough for you. I get it. It's fine. Love you. Immediately, you're shifting your identity into the consciousness of soul. And soul is so calm. Oh, like it's giving me goosebumps. Like soul is so confident, so grounded. There, you can't waver in it. You literally can't waver in it because soul is all that is. It is the truth of who you are. It is everything that you see and you. It's all that is. So when you shift that and you tap into that energy, now from here, lead your life from here. Because the moment that you're there, you love everything, everything. And when you love everything, you are in total love with yourself. And that's just the truth of what it is. When everything around you feels like the best thing in the whole world, you know that you are in the right state of consciousness because to soul, this whole life thing is just a game. It's just this really fun experience where you come and experience the opposite of who you are. You come and experience this crazy stuff that humans do. You come and experience it. It's just a game. It's just a game. You are soul, you are love, you are light. That's who you are. And when you can be here more than you be in the ego, that's when you're winning. And the thing is that the ego only has the power you give it. This is something, like this is something here. Because that ego energy can feel so, so strong. We know that. Like I always think about shower fights. Like that, you know that feeling where you like you're having an argument with somebody in your head and you're just you're killing it. You're winning that argument. You're saying all the stuff. You're like, oh, I could have said this, like shower fights, right? You know that feeling? That's ego. That's ego right there. That's ego, like at a T in its element, ego. So when you can recognize that feeling, it starts to get really, really helpful because anytime that you have anything around that feeling, you're like, oh, I am fueling my ego right now. I'm giving it so much power. Let me not do that because that is a surefire way to suffering. Anything with the ego is always going to lead you into a suffering mental loop. As much as you can, become aware of it, pull out your energy because you're the one who's fueling it. Isn't that just the most interesting thing in the world? Like, you are the one giving that energy. Pull it back. Pull it back. I hear you, ego. You're doing your thing. It's all right. I got it. I got it. No big deal. I got it. So as you do this and you start training yourself into this side of things more and more and more, what you're going to find is not only do you come into more acceptance for everything around you, but you start to really align with the truth, which is that you are the source of this whole experience. So you are the source of how you feel about somebody else. You are the source of how you feel about your life. You are the source of how you feel about your relationship. You are the source of how you feel about yourself. You are the source. And so the more that you align with love, the more that you're going to see everything through that lens of love. Does that make sense? Of course, easier said than done, right? Because human, and this is the whole journey, remembering who you are in the face of who you are not. What a game. What a game. Okay. We're going to go to our next question. Okay. My question is, another great question. Is there any time that we slow down or take a break from healing and constantly doing the work? I mean, I get that it's who we are at this point, but do we get to slow down and just reap all the rewards, not always having to be learning things at the same time? Yeah, right. It can get exhausting, right? So how cool, like this, the answer of this question is going to directly tie into the answer of our first question here. So let me think about how I want to approach it. There is a process. There's a process. So when you start to awaken, to this understanding that you are not the ego and you are soul, there is a process, a phase in that process where the healing work is more intense. And this is what we call the dark night of the soul. This is where we call that like going into the chrysalis, into the void, as you are dissolving who you thought you were to become who you're meant to be. There is a phase of that. And I did a video on Instagram that I think explained it so well. So see if I can like kind of recreate it. I had a cup of water and I filled it with dirt. So there's all this dirt in the water, right? You, the truth of who you are, soul, the light, is the water. But you have all this mucky stuff that's layered on top of it. So all of the dirt is the ego beliefs, it's the karma, it's the stuff that you were believing in that wasn't actually true, but you were giving it life, right? So when you awaken, you start to awaken to the truth of who you are. At first, it's very exciting. You're like, oh my God, this is magic. Like it's all the things, right? And then as more light pours in, because that's what awakening is, right? It's essentially you opening yourself up to the light of all that is. That light starts pouring in. So imagine clear water pouring into your cup, which is water, but it also has all this muck and dirt in it too. As it pours in the light, all of that muck and dirt is going to start spilling over and out to the point where the whole cup will look like mucky darkness, just mucky muck, right? Like, ugh, so much stuff coming out. So what this looks like in actual life is a heavy time period of life. You're sad, you're feeling a whole lot, a lot's coming out, everything triggers you. A lot of times people will label this point in life depression, like something's wrong with me, all of this stuff. But in truth, you're going through an awakening. So this is where that phrase comes, the only way out is through. Because if you stop, not that you can, but if you stop midway through, the muck stays here. It's less muck, right? Because a lot of it came out, but you're not getting to that full transcendence of pure water, pure light again. So the more that you just go all the way through it, don't make it wrong, let all that muck come out. And this is where I think people have a really hard time with it, because we're not taught how to feel. We're not taught that our emotions are just sensations and it's just energy moving in our body and it's okay. We have not been taught how to handle the capacity for feeling. But if you can, as much as you can, just allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling without making it wrong. And eventually, all of the muck is going to be out and you will be clear water again. And at that point, you have transcended to the truth of who you are. So going back to our first question, your light coming in to experience that which you are not, as you go on the awakening path of remembering who you are, the light starts pouring in because you've opened up to it. It pushes out all of that mucky muck and you become predominantly light. You already were, but you become predominantly light without the muck on top of you. Okay, so that's the process of healing. To answer the question, does it ever end? Yes, it does end. There is a point at which you reach that tipping point, right? Because if you think about in the beginning, you're anchored down with all the muck, and then you start to awaken and light starts pouring in, and that's where it starts to get heavy because all of the muck is coming out. This is the point where most people are like exhausted, right? Because you're like, God bless, when is this going to be over? Like, trust me, I know. I've been there. I know the feeling. It's not fun. It is necessary though. So that's the point where you're like that. The thing that makes it really hard, aside from the emotions part, like, I mean, y'all, there was a season of my life where I was crying every day. Like, you can ask my husband, it was just like routine. I was crying every day because there was so much that needed to come out. And what's really beautiful is that I look back on it now and I can see such a vibrational difference between that time period and who I am now, and how that was so necessary because I don't feel that anymore. I don't cry every day anymore. You know, I cry when I need to, but that point in time, there was so much coming out of me, so much coming out of me. And at the time, like any human, I was like, this is exhausting. Like, what's wrong with me? I need to just get it together, you know? But I can look back now and see how necessary that was, and I can appreciate it. Okay. So while you're in it, it sucks. It really does. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But you can make it easier if you understand this process, which is why I'm so adamant about teaching this. If you understand what's happening, it does make it easier because you then have the opportunity to not make it wrong. Just don't make it wrong. You're going to have some mucky muck come out. It's okay. The more you surrender to it, don't fight it, allow more light to come in, like push it out, get it out. The more you surrender to it, the faster it's going to go, which is why you guys know in my world, the name of the game is surrender, because surrender is letting go of my ego consciousness in terms of thinking I know better about how life is supposed to go. So a lot of times we can get ourselves in trouble thinking we know better. We know how things should be going and they're not going that way. So I am making it wrong and I am trying to fix it. Whenever we're trying to fix our current state of being, we're just keeping ourselves looping in that current state of being because that's giving energy to the ego and remembering the ego is never satisfied. Never satisfied, never satisfied. So that time period is essential. And if you're in the thick of it, I love you. I'm here for you. I know it's tough and it's so, so necessary. Keep going. It will end. I do promise you that. It will end. You will move through it faster the more you surrender to it. But the other thing I want to say about this, and what I kind of get in this question around the phrase here, constantly doing the work, there's an undertone of I'm doing the work so that I can get a certain result. And that is ego. That will always lead you in a loop. I'm trying to do the work so that I can get a specific outcome. Does that make sense? So when you're there, you're making the process wrong and you're waiting for it to end. Do you see the suffering in that? If I'm doing something for the purpose of getting something, right? Which is like, I'm doing the inner work so that I can get this. That is ego. That's going to keep you stuck and looping in that, because you see how it feels like I have to do something to get something, right? Like ego is like, it's on me. I have to do stuff. If I don't do stuff, then it's not going to happen. And I've got to make it happen. And then you get into this fear and scarcity loop because you feel like you're not doing enough because you're not out of it yet. And then you're making yourself wrong. You see, like ego, 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 ego. Instead, if you can, and I know, again, I know it's tough, but if you can see what you're moving through right now is part of the grand big picture of everything you asked for. Like we used to say a phrase in the Lightworker Society all the time, and I'm bringing it back because it was so profound. When you reject where you are, you simultaneously reject where you're going. When you reject the root, you reject the flower. What's happening right now in the darkness of the healing is part of the manifestation of the full big picture that you are craving so much. It's part of it. So embrace this part of it, love it. I know. Love it though, because it's happening so that you can have that grand experience. And you can't make that grand experience happen any faster than you can make a seed grow in the ground. There's a process for it. There's a timeline for it. And your only option is to surrender to it. It's your only option. So as much as you can, you want to be with what is. And when you're going through it, I see you, Erica. Erica says, yes, I have been crying almost daily. I just let it be and get it out. Exactly. So here's the best way to do it. This is the best way to do it. And God bless. I wish I'd had a manual back when I was going through it. Okay. Each day, there's 2 questions you want to ask yourself every day. Okay, so first though, premise, you're going to feel a lot. Be good with that. Like, just be okay with that. Meaning, if suddenly you want to cry, don't think about it, just cry. If suddenly you're really angry, get a pillow and beat the bejesus out of it. Like, get the anger out, scream, do the things, right? Like, whatever you feel, let yourself feel it all the way. Because the more you can do that, the faster all that muck is going to get out of you, right? If you suppress the feeling, you're closing the cap, you're limiting it moving out of your body. Okay. So, as much as you can, feel, feel, feel. Okay. And on a day to day basis, because we're human and we have these lives that we have to do, you want to ask yourself 2 questions. First question, what is their energy for? What is their energy for right now? Now, I understand a lot of us have jobs and we don't have the luxury to just do whatever we feel like. Okay, I get that. But source knows that. You know what I mean? Like soul, God, our support team, our angels know that. So you're not going through a certain situation without the support to give you everything you need to get what you need to get done. Now, what I want you to understand with that is like, it's not always what you think needs to get done. Okay. So every day, what is their energy for? And in that, you're going to feel an elation around the thing that there's energy for. So just in like a really basic example, like I'm old school, like I keep a to-do list, like I write it down because I'm a writer and that helps me process. So I write down everything that I need to do as it's coming through my head. And then I'll look at my list and I'll say, okay, here's all the things that need to get done, right? What is their energy for right now? And as I look at each thing on the list, there's always one thing that my heart's like, oh, I could do that right now. Oh, I could do that right now. Like that feels good. Do that thing because that's your guidance showing you the best and easiest way to move through your day. Now, aside from just that's like an example of how this works, it might not be a task on your to-do list. The thing that might feel the absolute best is like, I just want to lay on the couch and I want to watch my favorite show right now. Do it. By all means, do it. The thing is that our logical mind has this whole hang up around being productive, right? Because we've been trained into it. You are only valuable if you are productive. But in terms of the energetic pathway and what is truly effective in this earth game, the thing that feels the best to you in that moment is going to be the best way. And sometimes that's rest. Like sometimes that's rest. That's the best thing you can do. I was just having a conversation yesterday with one of my private clients. She had this huge expansion, like the holy grail of her life opened up, like huge. And she was so excited about it. And she's like doing all the things that she can to like nourish this thing to come out like, oh my gosh, this is happening, right? And then within a couple of days, her son got sick. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Okay. Spirit, calm yourself. That was wild. Within a couple of days, her energy contracted. She was tired. Her son got sick, and there was just like no capacity to do anything. And in that, we've all been here. In that, she was making herself wrong. And she was fearing, if I pull back right now, I'm never going to get this thing off the ground. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to lose momentum. Like she was ego, right? Like going into that fear and scarcity. But here's the thing. Everything grows in a series of expansion and contraction. Expansion, everything grows like this. Expansion, contraction, including us, including our ideas. And everything is being, it's like, think about it like this. It's like there's a whole lot of life force energy that comes in, and then there's an evening out of that life force energy. And then there's a whole lot of life force energy that comes in, and then there's an evening out of that. So when you feel that contraction, like you need to rest, you're more introverted, you don't have the capacity to do more, that is your time period of integration. That's your time period of distributing this huge influx of life force that just came in. And it's necessary. It's necessary. So I want you to think about it in terms of like, you guys know me, garden goddess over here. Like when you plant something into the ground, there is a season, we won't say season, there's a time period of you don't do anything else. You know what I mean? You got the seed, you put it into the ground, you cover it up with soil, you water it, and then you leave it alone. Because there's a time period of if you do more, you're gonna kill it. You see what I'm saying? You can do too much and it hinders the process. It actually does the reverse. It does the opposite of what you're wanting to do. So there is when you feel the energy for what it is that you want to do, or when you feel the energy for like, oh, yes, I want to do that, but then be done. Don't do extra in the name of, but if I do more, then I can push it to go further. No, you can't. Tell me how you make the seed grow. You don't do that. You don't do that. You plant it, you water it. There is nothing else you can do. You cannot make that little baby seed grow faster than it is programmed to grow. You feel me? Okay. Desi said, what if you're in the middle of a launch or a challenge? So for your business is what you're saying. So same thing. Same thing. You know how this is going to go. You have all the things that you know to do to nourish the outcome that you're after, right? So launch or a challenge, say it's like, I want 10 people in this thing. I want 10 people. This is me. This is not God. This is me. Like, I want this thing to be successful. Okay. So what is successful to you? 10 people are joining this thing. Okay. What does that feel like in your body? First and foremost, if it feels like elation and excitement, cool. Be with that feeling. Okay. What do I need to do to nurture that outcome? Same thing as if you had like a whole bed of a vegetable garden, and the outcome is you want an overflow of all of these plants, prosperous and growing. Okay. What do I need to nurture that outcome happening? And whatever's coming to your mind around like, oh, okay, I need to set this thing up here so that when these people are ready to come in, it's seamless, it's open, they're nurtured as they're coming in, they're receiving the email, they know where to go, maybe they get a little freebie download. Like I'm nurturing those people as they come in, set all that stuff up with your creating content. You want to think about it from the perspective of how do I nurture these people who are going to want to come in? What do they need? What can I serve them with? What can I give them? How do I nurture the outcome of what I want? And in that, you're going to have all these ideas, all these things. Some of them are going to be like really good ideas that come straight from source. Some of them are going to be like pulling from your past, like people have told you, you got to do this, you got to do that. You do the ones that feel like love, that feel like excitement, that feel like joy, because that is your guidance system. We have been so trained in our ego world. We've been so trained to go against how we feel and to try and get an outcome, to try to force it to happen. It will never happen like that. It won't. It will not create what you want it to be. Think about that feeling again, the feeling of like, oh, all these people are in this thing. We're doing it. It's magic. It feels so good. That feeling. Okay. So everything that feels like that feeling is the pathway to that feeling. Not overthink it, make myself wrong. I'm not doing enough. Let me write another email. Nobody responded. Nobody like, you see what I'm saying? Like, and it's going to bring that up in us because like, if you've got that to heal, that's going to get hit on. You know what I mean? It's going to get hit on, but that's your work. So in everything that we do, especially in terms of like business, there's going to be The actuality of what you need to do, which is like the nurturing of the launch, nurturing of the people, nurturing of the program, whatever. And then there's going to be what it brings up in you. What it brings up in you is your inner work. That's your work for yourself. That's got nothing to do with the launch. The launch just triggered that in you. So everything that we go after is going to trigger up something in us that's part of our growth. It's the way that it's built this way. Like, not just business, like the mechanism of the universe is built this way. It would be the same if you wanted to be a mom and you were having trouble getting pregnant, having kids. There are things to do to nurture the outcome of you becoming pregnant. Do you see what I'm saying? And it might bring up in you all this worthiness stuff around like not being able to get pregnant, around being a mom, all that stuff. That's your inner work. And then this is the things I can do to nurture the outcome I want. I had a client years ago. This is what's so cool about the energy work and how the universal system works, because it applies to everything, like quite literally everything. So I had a client back in 2019 who wanted to get pregnant. And she was just, distraught about it. Like it is hard. It's a really hard and tough thing to go through if your whole thing is like you want to be a mother and then you can't get pregnant. Like that's tough. And the work that we did was creating a nurturing, loving environment for that little baby soul to come into. Meaning nurturing her body, loving her womb, caring for herself, nurturing the relationship with her and her husband, creating those bonds, that intimacy. So none of like I know a lot of times when people are trying to get pregnant, it's like you got to schedule sex to your ovulation and blah, 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 and all that. Painful, right? We nurtured the loving environment for the baby to come in, prepared for the baby to come in the energy she wanted the baby to come in. Do I need to say that within the month she got pregnant? You got to prepare the energy for what it is that you want. And anything that doesn't feel like that energy is not the way to go. So even like, in business stuff, it can get because you've got everyone in your ear saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to work unless you do that. What happens in that is you lose the reason you're doing it in the first place. And the reason you're doing it in the first place is to serve and help other people. When you lead from that, how do I serve and help other people? How do I prepare this launch to serve and help other people? How do I prepare my content to serve and help other people? How do I set my business up to serve and help other people? Like when you lead from that, all of this stuff falls into place. We can get real bogged down with like trying to sell the right way and say the right things and you lose the original purpose. It's messy. It gets messy. It gets mucky. It becomes you trying to do it all yourself rather than leveraging the co-creation of the energy that creates worlds and has already set up your path for you anyway. We start trying to take over, being like, God, I know how to do this better than you. Okay. You see, it's like silly once we start walking down that. And launching something, if you have those feelings of like good enoughness, it's going to bring them up. It's going to bring them up. You know what I mean? Like, and let me say this. Okay. You do not heal your way to success in your business. Like doing healing work does not equal you make money. Doing healing work does not equal your business is successful. Doing healing work does not equal you get the job of your dreams. It's not like that. Doing healing work frees you to do the things in the right energy that then can lead to success, money, and you getting what you want. Because we have to take action in order to manifest things into our physical reality. But when we're taking action, in an energy of trying to prove, trying to get, trying to chase, that action can only manifest a reality of trying to prove, trying to get, trying to chase. So when you do the healing work, it's aligning your energy to a different energetic frequency. That doesn't automatically equal money, success, people, business. That puts you in a position to take action, and maybe a different action, because now you can receive a different thing to do, to take action in a different energy, which will then manifest a different reality. So that's a real big subject, but I hope that that clarifies, because if you can get that, your life's going to be a lot easier. You can spend decades trying to heal your way to money or heal your way to success. It will not happen. It's not like that. You heal you so that you are in this beautiful, solid, I know who I am energy. And from there, you can do the stuff from the right energy that's going to manifest a different reality. It's like, it's my fault. I get really mad when people call me on my lives. Okay, we're going to wrap. I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was amazing. Thank you for your questions. If you want to send a question into the show, you can message me directly, or you can email me at assistant@marliansel.com. And next week, we will not be here. There will be no morning show. I'm going out of town. I will not be here. I will not be here. PSA, tell all your friends. And we will resume the following Monday. All right. I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Erica, if you're still on, I'll see you in 8 minutes. Bye, guys.